right, I need to. I think I should. All right, hold on.
Hello.
Morning, everybody. I'm just getting all this stuff ready in the background. So I'm going to mute myself because I might start talking to myself. And if I start swearing, that would not be good. All right. Morning, everybody.
Fine.
We've got Linda. Go ahead, wave in the background, Linda. You could just, there she is. Socially, physically distancing. LO is Linda Kuhnhart. Right, Linda? That's you. Linda, are you LO again?
Yes, Sylvia. And actually, at a recent Zoom meeting I went to, you as host have the ability to change my LO to become Linda Kuhnhart.
Yeah, I know. We did that last time. That's what I'm doing right now.
I was disappointed. I thought it was going to stay that way forever, that you fixed it.
There, so you are now officially Linda. So we have someone on an iPhone. Could you let me know who you are?
Hi, Sylvia. It's Zach.
Zach, thank you. Let's see, rename.
I need to figure out how to change that when I sign on.
Well, I just did. I can now, everybody can see this is Zach, the one and only. You don't
Thank
even, you don't need a last name. You're just Zach.
Yeah, and be redundant.
Yeah, similar to Cher and Madonna and Sting. That is what Linda is saying.
The same.
All right, we are getting everyone. All right, so we have Bill from Bedford. Oh, we have Barbara Salvatore. How nice. So if everyone, also we had sent everyone the commissioners list. Hopefully that will help keep everybody on track with when to chime in. We have several people who have joined us, Linda. We have Andrew Haddock. Morning, Andrew. Alfred.
Morning, Sylvia.
Okay, just going through the lists of. What's that? Hi, Barbara. Good to see you. All right. I think that's Dean Williams. Good, we have Jeff Moulton. Yay, hi, Jeff. Why can't I find Jeff Moulton? Here we go. You all have to unmute yourselves when you come in, otherwise you're muted. But you can unmute yourself.
Hello, Sylvia.
Hi, Sylvia.
Morning, morning, David. Morning, Dick.
Here too, Sylvia.
Who was that?
That's Peter.
Peter Capano. Ah, there you are. Yeah, hi.
Hello.
It's fun to, so I always think of everyone as the Brady Bunch when I see this screen. All right.
I think Hollywood Squares.
Oh, you think Hollywood Squares? Nice. Who's in the middle? Peter Lynn. That would be Jeff Moulton. Peter Lynn taught me sarcasm.
He did a good job.
I think you mean Paul Lynn.
Oh my God, you're right. Paul Lynn. Who am I saying? Well, you know.
Peter Marshall was the host.
Yes. Oh my goodness. You're so good. You're right. Oh, they're pouring in. Here's Deb Levins. Williams iPad. Could you tell me who that is?
Bill Herman.
Oh, that's Bill Herman. Okay. Thanks, Bill.
Bill Herman for the block.
Could be worse.
Up, we have William Rose. There was one. Let's see, that must be Dick Marshall. Remind me. Alfred. Thank you. All right. And we have Carl, James. I think I saw Adam. Julie. That's Art Rug, thank you. I am gonna change that to Art Rug. Where's that? Here we go. We're getting there, almost getting there. Art, I'm changing, instead of Julie, you're now Art Rug on your screen. Otherwise, I might keep confused, which is not good. All right, I think we're almost there to where we have everyone. We have still a few more people coming in. We have a couple people on phone. We have one person who just joined. Could you identify yourself?
Hey, Sylvia, John Hiltz from Wyndham is here. I'm on my phone, but it should show up as my name, I think.
Oh, yes, yes, there, that is, yep, thank you, John.
Sylvia, it's Peter from Windham also.
Oh, great, thank you. We have Wyndham covered. Did I miss Tom Clow? Is he here from where? No, I don't think so. All right. I'm going to quick go through the names. Where's our friend Jeff? I need Jeff. Where are you? There you are. I think we're ready to start, and we'll on the roll call, if you just, everyone be patient with me when we start that. If I miss anyone, please chime in at the end, but we'll go according to communities. So we'll start with Auburn and do alphabetically, then we'll go through other voting members like DOT, and then non-voting members. All right. We're ready for you, Jeff, to start us off.
So you want me to read the boilerplate here again? Or do I?
Yes.
skip that?
Yes, we do that to cover our bases.
All righty. The chair of the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission has found that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12 pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission and committees thereof are authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. The Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission is utilizing Zoom for this electronic meeting. All members of the committee have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through this platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in this meeting as follows. Online access, https://uso2web.zoom.us/j/85452932270. Telephone only access is 646-558-8656 with a meeting ID of 854-5293-2270. These instructions have also been provided on the Southern New Hampshire Planning website at www.snhpc.org. If anyone has a problem accessing the meeting, please call 603-669-4664 or email mducanesque@snhpc.org. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. So I'd like to call them order as the Metropolitan Planning Organization. Do a roll
All
call.
right. Roll call. Auburn.
Bill Herman here.
Bedford.
Old Shatco along.
Bill Jean here.
Barbara Salvatore here.
Candia is excused for today. Chester?
Andrew Haddock here.
Deb Munson, are you here? Thought I saw Deb Munson. Maybe she's having struggling with, oh, she's coming in again. All right, we'll go back to Deb. No one from Deerfield Dairy.
Jeff Moulton,
John O'Connor.
Thank you. Francistown. Alfred.
Alfred Eisenberg.
Thank you.
Linda Kuhnhart here.
Thank you. Goffstown.
David Pierce.
Hooksett.
Dick Marshall here.
Cutler Brown here.
Good. Thank you. Londonderry.
Deb Levens.
Arthur.
Yes, Art Rugg is here.
Thank you. Manchester.
Peter Capano is here.
New Boston.
Markson in here.
Anyone from where that I missed? All right, and Wyndham.
John Hiltz here.
Peter Griffin is here.
And back to Chester. Deb Munson, did you make it?
Yes, Deb Munson is here.
All right, and now our voting members that are agency, DOT.
Yeah, William Rose is here.
Anyone from MTA that I may have missed? All right, non-voting members, we have DES. Tim White, are you there?
Tim White is here.
Thank you. Any other non-voting member?
Yeah, this is Dean here from Central Neighborhood Commission.
Thank you. And then staff? We have,
This is James Veo.
thanks, James. Carl?
Carl Epic, Southern New Hampshire Plan.
Zach?
Good morning, everyone. This is Zach.
And in the room here, go ahead, wave Nate and Linda. And of course, there's me. Any other staff I missed? And we had one latecomer. Who was that, please?
Mark Shagnon.
I'm sorry, say it again.
Mark Shagnon.
Oh, hi, good morning.
Hi. Good morning. Hello, Mr. Marshall.
All right, good. Okay, Jeff.
You're muted.
Yeah, if everyone else can mute themselves if they're not talking, that'd be great.
all right, so first action is the meeting minutes of April 28th, 2020. Do we have a motion to accept?
Bill Herman, I'll move to approve.
Second, Linda Kuhnhart.
Second.
Linda Kuhnhart seconded.
Any comments, corrections? All right, I guess we do a roll call.
Okay, Auburn,
Yes.
Bedford,
Yes.
Yes.
Chester,
Yes.
Derry.
Jeff Moulton?
Yes.
Okay, Francistown,
Favor.
Yes.
Goffstown,
Yes.
Hooksett.
Yes.
Yes.
We should have a third yes. We'll assume it. Londonderry,
Yes.
Art,
A little slow here. Yes.
Manchester,
Yes.
New Boston,
Abstain.
abstain. Wyndham,
Yes, Peter.
Yes. Yes, John Hiltz.
John, and William Rose.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. We are totally flying through this now. And we just had Brian Battaglia from Londonderry join us. Oh, and in several ways, it looks like. I don't know what that is about. 2 Brians. He has cloned himself. Okay, so we'll wait to see how that works out. What's next, Jeff?
Okay, do we have any old business before we move on to the new items?
Linda and I think not.
Good. All right, first item is the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission fiscal year 19 to 2022 TIP amendment number 4. Nate, you're up.
Actually, Carl is going to take this one for us for various reasons. So Carl, take it away.
Good morning. I just tried to share my screen. I believe you have to do something on your end.
Nope, it's just you.
Can you
So
guys see the?
No. So
Okay.
what you need to do is when you hit the shared screen green button,
Yeah.
you pick the item you want to share. So in this case, probably the
Oh,
power.
cool. Yeah, now I see it.
And then that'll work out. So
Very cool.
now things are happening.
All right. I don't remember that step from last time. Good morning again, Carl Epic, Principal Transportation Planner with the Commission. I'm covering this for Nate this morning. He may have to leave at any moment, so we decided this was the way to do it. Get rid of that. All right. Now you should be able to see it dominating the screen. This is the 4th TIP amendment in this 2019 to 2022 TIP TIP program. And really quickly, there's only a couple of things in here, but at the end, we'll be looking for a motion, discussion, and approval of the amendment. So DOT has asked us to amend the TIP with 2 projects, as I mentioned. The public comment period began on the 11th. It concluded after a 10-day comment period, which ended on the 21st, and we have not received any comments in that period. Back on the 21st, the TAC unanimously recommended that the MPO adopt this amendment. And I'll go into the 2 components here. The first one is Manchester Project 41414. Nice number. This is a red listed bridge project. You all should be familiar with this. This is Hughes Road over I-293, right near the main mall, which is also New Hampshire Route 101 at that, in that area. The proposed amendment is just to add a construction phase, funding for construction in fiscal year 2021. And this has been bumped up. It's ready to advance construction earlier than anticipated. Just to familiarize everyone with this location, here's the greater Manchester area, the red dot there at the bottom, kind of right above the mall, New Hampshire, 293 and 101. Zooming in, this is the bridge, and this is what it looks like when you're driving across it. This is the road that goes behind the mall, New Hampshire, and connects over to the Memorial High School area. And the second one is a statewide project. This is to install road and weather systems information capabilities around the state. I believe DOT calls these RWIS. It's a scope change only, and the approved scope was to install these systems throughout the state, and the proposed scope stays the same to install them. The proposed amendment is here because they're removing the previous add date from the scope, as the project is scheduled to advertise now on May 26th. And that is really the extent of TIP amendment number 4. And so we're looking for questions and a motion at this point.
Any questions for Carl? All right, do we have a motion to approve?
Yeah,
I'll make a
Mr.
motion
Chairman,
to approve.
and I'll second it, Peter.
Peter?
Did you get who that was? Deb Levens, was that you who started the motion or who?
Deb Munson.
Deb Munson did. Thank you, Deb. And the second was who again? Peter Capano?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, here's the roll call. Auburn,
Bill Herman, yes.
Bedford,
Shatko, yes. Bill Jean, yes.
Barbara, yes.
thank you. Chester,
Deb Munson, yes.
Andrew Haddock? You're muted if you're talking. Andrew, did we lose you?
Andrew, yes.
Thank you. Derry,
Moulton, yes.
O'Connor, yes.
Francistown,
Schoenhardt, favor.
Alfred,
Yes.
Goffstown,
Dave Pierce, yes.
Hooksett,
Dick Marshall, yes.
Cutler Brown, yes.
Gagnon, yes.
thank you. Londonderry,
Deb Levens, yes.
Art Rug, yes.
Battaglia, yes.
thank you, Brian. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Manchester,
Capano, yes.
New Boston,
Mark Sunan, yes.
and Wyndham.
Peter Griffin, yes.
John, yes.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay.
All right, moving right along. Second item on the new business is the vulnerability assessment report. And James Veo is up.
Hey, great. Hello. Good morning, everyone. As you remember, back during the April MPO meeting, I gave a presentation for about 20 minutes on the regional vulnerability assessment activities, and noted that the public comment period was opening up for that, for the final report, according to our public improvement plan. That public comment period has come to an end, and we're now in May, and we've sorry, losing my train of thought. There we go. We got it up and running. That report has now received a public review period, and it has gone before the TAC committee for review and comment as well. And they provided a recommendation for adoption by the MPO. And this report can now be found on the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission's webpage with edits according to address the public comment that was received. One public comment from Shane Schicky over at New Hampshire Geological Survey, which we'll cover a little later in the presentation. So if you want to review this full report as written in its draft form, you can visit our webpage under Environmental and Energy Planning, Climate Adaptation, and then down at the bottom, Vulnerability Assessment. And this page has a brief overview of what the vulnerability assessment is. And at the bottom of the page, there's a link to download the complete report, including all its appendices. Because I covered this in detail back in April, I'm just going to give a brief summary. I'm going to cover a couple of slides I did not get to cover back in April. And then I'm going to cover the public comment that came in, and hand it over to you guys to consider adoption or action as a committee. I just want to take a moment again to thank the project partners that participated in putting together the vulnerability assessment. A lot of work, ongoing work, year after year from each of these divisions of our state government. And in our municipal government, including engineering staff and road agents. We wouldn't have been able to put this report together without the institutional knowledge of our local municipal worker colleagues, and the ongoing annual work of these departments listed above. So again, I'm just going to give a very brief 5-minute synopsis of where the assessment report came from, the activities that took place. I've really cut this down to just a couple of slides, and then we'll cover briefly the comments received on the report, and then adoption. The report really breaks down into 4 categories of activity: articulating assessment objectives, defining the study area, selecting the relevant assets, and then identifying risk factors. You may remember this slide from the April presentation. And to summarize, the assessment activities included stakeholder outreach, data collection, identification of impacts, scoring and prioritization, identification of high priority assets, and then adaptation mitigation recommendations. We covered most of this in April, except the recommendations, so I'll cover those in more detail. The assessment objectives really come around addressing vulnerability that's been associated with changes in weather patterns. And so over the last several decades, there's been a documented transition or change in the amount of weather we get, especially rainfall, in both frequency of the rainfall and the intensity of the rainfall. Rainfall is coming more often and in larger quantities when it does come. And so that's just reflected here. Our study area is naturally, it's the 14 municipalities within the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission region. And specifically, we're looking at the road network within that region. This vulnerability assessment is really targeted at analysis and documentation of stream crossings, which are collectively are comprised of both culverts and small bridges. We defined in this report small bridges as those less than 20 feet in width or diameter, depending on the structure that the water is flowing through. And that is in keeping with Federal Highway Administration's definition for a small bridge. And then finally, identifying risk factors. Again, I covered this back in April, so I won't go into too much detail, but with increases in weather events, frequency, intensity of rainstorms, we find that these intersections of roads and streams become more vulnerable to either damage or failure or incapacitation of the structure. Little image kind of reflects that. Finally, well, not finally, but we did cover this in much more detail in April, and I'm not gonna go through each one of these, but we used a variety of factors, data, metrics gathered from interviews with asset managers and road agents, as well as working with New Hampshire Geological Survey and DES to define what factors are most appropriately correlate to the risk of vulnerability for a stream crossing. And you can see here on the lower right hand, there's a little graphic here about the lowest and the highest possible score. So the lowest score that a stream crossing could have is a 0, and the highest score is a 49. We have many crossings that have a 0 score, meaning they don't have any significant risk factors that that associated with. They don't have any data sets that associated with a score for risk. And then on the other end, we don't have any crossings that achieved a score of 49. If we have time at the end of this, we could go through the map in more detail, but what we've done here is we've taken the data and the analysis and the prioritization that we've conducted with the vulnerability assessment, and that has been driven into an online map as a resource for use by local municipalities to either look up data about stream crossings in their community, or to look up information about the risks factors associated with this assessment with individual stream crossings as developed in this vulnerability assessment. There's a link at the top of this slide, and the image itself is linked to the online map. So when this presentation is posted to our webpage, you could go through and get to this via the presentation. There's also a link under the vulnerability assessment section of the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission webpage to this map. Finally, report recommendations. These are slides that did not get to cover back in April. And I'll just go through these quickly. They're on two scales. There's municipal recommendations and then regional recommendations that were really developed from largely both through the analysis of the report, but in large part driven by multiple interviews with asset managers in each municipality. One of the things we heard quite a bit is that they liked the idea of the stream crossing map tool, which I just showed you on the previous slide. And there were recommendations to add new filtering functions to the map to make it even more accessible and useful for DPW staff and road agents. We've actually implemented that first recommendation within the map. There are now filtering functions, which if we have time at the end, we can cover, that allow for the stream crossings to be filtered by municipality and then again by ownership, as well as by the size of the stream crossing. The second recommendation here is to develop and document the clearing of debris associated with beaver activity. In nearly every community that we met with, an asset manager mentioned beaver activity as a major concern for risk. And beaver activity is included in the scoring of the vulnerability assessment, although it is not a major factor. And part of why that is because it is difficult to document beaver activity on the timeline in which the stream crossings are documented. So stream crossing might get documented once and not touched again for another 7 years in terms of documentation. That's part of the protocol that was developed by the state and is intended to be used that way for efficient use of public resources. In the absence of annual documentation of beaver activity in the SAIDS, in the stream crossing data, it would make sense for communities to develop some local version of documentation, or even here at the Regional Planning Commission, we could work with our community members to create mapping tools to allow for mapping on a regional level. When a stream does become blocked from beaver activity, it becomes if that happens in tandem with a major rainstorm event, ponding can occur upstream of the beaver activity and result of water flowing over the top of the road, which is very risky for causing either damage or failure of a stream crossing. So something to keep in mind. And then the last two recommendations here on the municipal level incorporate the data that was developed and gathered during the vulnerability assessment into local hazard mitigation plans. That is work that Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission does in concert with local staff on a 5-year cycle. So if your community is coming due for a hazard mitigation plan, we would want to provide this vulnerability assessment data for consideration for inclusion in some form in the hazard mitigation plan. And then the last recommendation here under municipal is incorporate stream crossing replacement into capital improvement plans. This already happens for many communities within the region. It just it seemed to warrant iteration being repeated in the recommendations to drive home the importance of longer range planning for stream crossings. Regional recommendations for Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission to assist communities in public outreach and awareness of stream crossing hazards. Really, if a community wants help identifying risk factors associated with stream crossings, that's a place where we have lots of knowledge now, and we really would love to help any community that wants to get out information about how we can reduce risk factors for your local stream crossings. Incorporate findings of vulnerability assessment into future land development studies. One of the things that I came across during this assessment period was a really nice report put together by the University of New Hampshire Sustainability Institute about the impacts of land development on the Lamprey River, which runs from about Candia all the way out to the Great Bay estuary in Portsmouth, Newmarket area, and some really interesting findings about the vulnerability created all along that stream as a result of some existing land development patterns. Coordinate with regional long-range infrastructure planning and capital improvements. This is very similar to the recommendation at the municipal level about just incorporating stream crossings into capital improvement planning. Is similar where the municipalities are taking care of local assets on local roads. We would recommend that that same type of planning is taking place for state assets on regional roads and state roads. And then finally, New Hampshire coordination with Department of Environmental Services and New Hampshire Department of Transportation around knowledge of stream crossings. And something we heard a little bit about from some of our local asset managers was just working with DOT to identify where there's some ambiguity around ownership of stream crossings. And that wraps up the recommendations in my brief overview of the assessment report. Again, that was format of the report is a Word, a PDF. It's a much bigger document, but we're time constrained here. So I just wanted to give a quick summary, especially in light of the fact that we had already covered this content in April. Since April, we've had a public comment period open and then close on May 21st. During that public comment period, we did hear from Shane Chickey at the New Hampshire Geological Survey, who had some comments relative to the language in the report, all of which was addressed. And then the report was reposted as a final draft on our Regional Planning Commission webpage. I won't get into the details of this, but if people want to see the written comment from Shane Chickey, I'm happy to pass it along. Shane worked closely with us throughout this process and was a huge help. And we worked with him on developing some new documentation around ponding, which they are continuing to mature as an analysis tool. We did hear some comment from him about making sure that we note the draft nature of early ponding analysis. In an earlier version of this vulnerability assessment, we did not, we did have substantial content around ponding analysis. We have since removed that content to allow New Hampshire Geological Survey to take the lead on developing that tool further. And so we just wanted to note that in the report. I jumped ahead of the first bullet, so let me go back. Request for clarification on the terminology of a small bridge. The state of New Hampshire uses the distance of 10 feet wide to categorize a bridge as small, which is not in line with federal highway. And so there was, I clarified with Shane that we were following the Federal Highway Administration's definition of a small bridge. Further in the body of the report, there was a reference to New Hampshire Geological Survey where Shane had suggested we actually reference New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services relative to some work that was being completed. And then just a few more comments about Streamworks model and labeling of a map, and mislabeled a map as flood, something other than flood hazards geodatabase. We corrected that in the report. This is all the comments we received during the public comment period, and the comments were addressed in accordance with our public involvement plan. that leads to the final element of this, which is recommendation for action. TAC took a vote at their meeting on the 21st to recommend approval, which was unanimous. And now we're asking the MPO to take action with here some suggested language to adopt the 2020 Regional Vulnerability Assessment Report.
Do we have any questions for James before we take that vote? No? Okay, do we have a motion to adopt the 2020 Regional Vulnerability Assessment?
I'd move that we adopt. Dick Marshall. Bill Shockley, second.
Get that? Okay, we've got a motion. Shall I go through the order?
Please.
All right, Auburn,
Bill Herman, yes.
Bedford,
Bill Shockley, yes. Bill Jean, yes.
Barbara Salvatore, yes.
Chester,
Deb Munson, yes.
Andrew Haddock, yes.
Moulton, yes.
O'Connor, yes.
Francistown.
Alfred Eisenberg, yes.
Okay, we got 2 yeses there. Goffstown,
Dave Pierce, yes.
Hooksett,
Dick Marshall, yes.
Mark Shagnon, yes.
Butler Brown, yes.
Londonderry,
Deb Levens, yes.
Art Rugg, yes.
Brian Battaglia, yes.
Manchester,
Peter Capano, yes.
New Boston,
Mark Sunan, yes.
and Wyndham.
Peter Griffin, yes.
John Hiltz, yes.
Wonderful. And DOT.
I'll abstain.
William Rose abstained. Okay.
Very good. I guess, do we have a motion to adjourn the Metropolitan Planning Organization?
So moved.
Second, Peter Griffin.
Roll call.
I think on this.
Auburn, yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Bedford, Bill Shatko, yes.
Bedford, Bill Jean, yes.
Bedford, Barbara Salvatore, yes.
Chester,
Chester, Deb Munson, yes.
Chester, Andrew Haddock, yes.
Derry,
Yes.
O'Connor, yes.
Francistown,
Hart, yes. I thought that a motion to adjourn didn't need to have a roll call vote. But that's okay.
we didn't last time, but since it started, I just figured we'd go with it. Goffstown,
Dave Pierce, yes.
Hooksett,
Dick Marshall, yes.
Mark Shagnon, yes.
Butler Brown, yes.
good. Londonderry,
Deb Levens, yes.
Art Rugg, yes.
Brian Battaglia, yes.
Manchester,
Capano, yes.
New Boston,
Mark Sunan, yes.
Wyndham,
Peter Griffin, yes.
John Hiltz, yes.
and William.
Yes.
Okay, great. That's it for the MPO. Now we get to open up, right, Jeff, the commission?
We'll call to order the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission. First action is the minutes of April 28th, 2020.
So moved, Peter Griffin.
Second, Barbara Salvatore.
I will now consider this both roll call and action on the minutes. Auburn,
Bill Herman here, and yes.
Bedford,
Bill Shatko, yes. Bill Jean, yes.
Barbara Salvatore, yes.
Chester,
Deb Munson, yes.
Andrew Haddock, yes.
Terry,
Jeff Moulton, yes.
O'Connor, yes.
Francistown,
Hart, yes.
Charlestown, Dave Pierce, yes.
did we skip
And Eisenberg.
Alfred Eisenberg? I didn't hear you.
Yes, I said yes.
Thanks.
Sorry. All right. And we've got Dave Hooksett.
Mark Shagnon, yes.
Butler Brown, yes.
Dick Marshall.
Yes.
Thank you. Londonderry.
Deb Levens, yes.
Art Rug, yes. Brian Battaglia, yes.
Thank you. Manchester.
Peter Capano, yes.
New Boston.
Mark Sunan, abstain.
Thank you. Wyndham.
Peter Griffin, yes.
John Hiltz, yes.
Great. So the big excitement for this meeting, of course, is Jerry Little, and he hasn't come in. So I'm going to ask James to the real exciting part. I know you've all want to hear more about the vulnerability assessment, but really the exciting part is the interactive map. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe we don't have time for that. I'm just now letting in Jerry. He is right on time. Look at that. Can you hear us, Jerry? Good morning, Jerry. Are you there?
He's muted. Unmute him.
He can unmute himself.
I got it. There we go. How's
Oh,
that?
Great. Thanks so much for being here.
My pleasure.
So we just got to your item. I did do the staff report, which, where the heck is it? Last page, vulnerability assessment. Goodness, so many sheets of paper. So thanks first to Bill Herman for introducing Jerry to us and to the commission. I know very little, just what I've got here on the paper. So I think it's better, Jerry, if you introduce yourself and all what you're working on with the Governor's Office for Emergency Relief and Recovery.
Sure. I am Jerry Little. Generally, in normal times, I am State Bank Commissioner. I've been doing that for about 4 years now. In early April, the governor called and asked if I would accept a reassignment, temporary reassignment, to serve as director of the Governor's Office for Emergency Relief and Recovery. The general assignment was to organize an office as quickly as possible, to staff it up, and to figure out how we might go about distributing $1.25 billion in federal CARES Act flex funds that were granted to the state of New Hampshire. I have to tell you that when I heard that number the first time, I thought that was an amazing amount of money and that it would be very difficult to figure out how to use all of it. And in the past month to 6 weeks, it's become clear that $1.25 billion is not enough to address all of the problems that are being experienced by the state of New Hampshire, either from social impacts or economic impacts visited on the state by the coronavirus. We are now a staff of 11 people. Everybody here is a reassigned state employee, which is a very efficient way to get an office up and running, and staffed by extremely talented and hardworking individuals. We have a great team here. And in the short amount of time that we've been here, we did a count this morning. I think we've created 13, I believe, individual programs for distributing the CARES Act monies. Not all of them are stood up and operating yet, but we're getting there on many of them. one of the first things we did was assume responsibility for the Healthcare Stabilization Fund, which is a fund that was created by Governor Sununu to make monies available to hospitals and other healthcare providers so that nobody's doors would close as a result of the coronavirus. That was initially funded with general funds that were moved out of other lines that Department of Health and Human Services, one of the first things that we did here was they flowed those funds back to Health and Human Services, and we backfilled them, replaced them with CARES Act monies. The governor had also set up the subsidies paid to frontline employees in hospitals and Medicaid accepting nursing homes. And we took responsibility for that program as well, which was already up and running before the Gopher office was established. We have also now assumed responsibility for the first responders subsidy program, which was created by the folks over at Department of Safety. And so we're managing that program to send $300 to, or for full-time, $150 per week, part-time, additional paychecks to police officers, firefighters, correctional officers, and other frontline, first responders. I can keep going. The first plan or program that was actually created from whole cloth here at the Gopher office that the governor adopted and implemented created financial support for New Hampshire municipalities and counties. In that, we took a pool of funds and apportioned it across all of the municipalities in the state of New Hampshire and all of the counties based upon the percentage of state population that live within their borders. That program is up and running, and we've signed most of the grant applications at this point in time. So many of the cities and towns across the state are eligible to put in requests. There are several disbursement dates that are set, and we're asking the cities and towns to identify their non-FEMA refundable COVID-19 related expenses and to send us evidence of those expenses, and we will send you checks covering them up to the amount of money that was signed or allotted to your city or town based upon the percentage of New Hampshire's population that live within your borders. The programs go on and on. We are currently in the process of administering the Main Street Relief Program. This is the second week of pre-qualification. So anybody that runs a small business that's interested in applying for part of the $400 million that the governor has assigned to that program needs to file a pre-qualification form. And that period will run through 11:59 p.m. this coming Friday. Only people who have filed that pre-qualification form will be eligible to submit an application to get some of that money. That application period opens next Monday, a week from yesterday. That will run for about a week, and then shortly after that period ending, announcements will be made about what the requirements are to receive some of the funds and how much is being sent out to which businesses across the state of New Hampshire. Would you like me to stop there and entertain questions? I don't want to sort of go off in directions that you're not interested in. So maybe the best thing to do is to see if that's prompted any thoughts in your minds.
Jerry, this is Representative John O'Connor, and you stopped at a great place. On the Main Street Relief Fund,
I know it ends, the application is coming Friday. How is it going to be scored, and who's involved in the scoring and the dissemination of the monies?
All great questions, Representative, and ones that I don't have good answers for at this point. The reason being, and that's the design, in that the purpose of the pre-qualification period was to gauge what the need looks like, what's out there. And so, for instance, one of the guidelines is your annual revenues for have to be under $20 million. That was to set some sort of a high-end parameter so that we're not making the same mistakes that were made by the Paycheck Protection Plan run by the Small Business Administration out of Washington, where there were a great number of very large publicly traded companies, very large employers who were able to grab a significant amount of the funds available. The purpose for the Main Street Relief Fund is to help small businesses across the state of New Hampshire. So that 20 million is the upside limit at this point in time, but that could easily change. So the program is being designed by the folks over at the Department of Revenue Administration. We're not managing that design function here in the Gopher office. As a matter of fact, many of the programs that we're responsible for operating were not designed by us, are not going to be designed by us. We're going to have responsibility for making sure that that the guidelines that are established are followed. We're basically doing the compliance side of things. We will make sure that the funding goes out. We're responsible for paying the grant awards that people will be receiving. But in many cases, there's little else. As I mentioned, the only one that we made out of whole cloth here at the Gopher office so far has been the one for municipalities and counties. So those details about how the Main Street Relief Program will actually be scored and how the funds will be awarded will be coming out sometime, I'm guessing, within the next week or so. But again, we're not designing them here at the Gopher office. They are being, the program is being designed by the Department of Revenue Administration. So when folks make their application, they're going to certify that, we're trying to help people by absorbing some of the financial losses that small businesses have incurred as a result of coronavirus, whether it's because they were told they had to close or because they've had great amounts of expense due to sanitation or acquisition of personal protection equipment or anything like that. But we're asking people to tell us, what were your revenues, gross revenues in 2019? And what are your gross revenues likely to be in 2020? Obviously, there's a lot of opportunity. We're asking people to estimate for us what they think their take is going to be for the year. The concept is that by asking you to tell that to DRA, you're going to understand that there's higher responsibility, maybe more seriousness, or some concern that you want to be as close to accurate as you possibly can, telling the Department of Revenue Administration what your receipts are going to be for 2020. If we're just saying, tell those folks over at the Gopher office how much you're going to make, you might guesstimate on the high side. The inference is that if you're a little bit too aggressive in assuming that your business is not going to do as well as you might like, DRA is going to have the ability to, in some manner, look for corrective action if you end up grossly misreporting what the impact of coronavirus on your business has been. And I know a lot of people would like more details about how that's going to happen before they submit their applications. There are reasons why we wouldn't want to give you more details on how that's going to happen before you submit your application, because we want you to make sure that the application you put in is as close as you can possibly make it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
I have a question. This is Peter Capano from Manchester. And I think you touched on it just then at the end of your last discussion, but you said that 1.25 billion wasn't going to be enough, and it was obvious after a short period of time. I was curious as what other data you got to get you to that conclusion.
The Governor's Office for Emergency, thank you for the question, by the way, Peter. The Governor's Office for Emergency Relief and Recovery was established by an executive order, Executive Order 2020-06, I believe it is. And you can read in that order how we're told to operate. One of the things we were directed to do immediately was to create the Legislative Advisory Board and the Stakeholders Advisory Board. Legislative Advisory Board has probably the 8 senior members of the New Hampshire General Court, Senate President, the House Speaker, the minority leaders from both bodies, the chairs of the finance committees for the House and the Senate, and other members of, I believe it's representatives of the Fiscal Committee for both the House and the Senate. So they're really sort of the lead budget and leadership of the leadership in both the House and the Senate in New Hampshire. And they began by holding public testimony or accepting public testimony. The first day was filled with testimony from the commissioners and deputy commissioners of probably the most affected departments of state government. Department of Health and Human Services, Employment Security, Safety, on through. Then it was followed up by inviting a number of industries that we believed were probably being highly impacted by the coronavirus, the healthcare industries, the hospital association, doctors, nurses, dentists, dental hygienists, and moved on into taking testimony from industry trade groups. One of the first to testify to us, Peter, was the New Hampshire Lodging and Restaurant Association. They made 3 asks for funds from the $1.25 billion in total that were received in CARES Act Flex funds. And those 3 asks totaled together $1 billion of the $1.25 billion. Now, I believe that their proposals and presentations were put together fairly and accurately, but not probably realistically. If they truly thought that $1 billion of the $1.25 billion would be allotted to helping restaurants and hotels, really important businesses, major economic drivers, major employers in the state of New Hampshire, and we'd love to give them all of the funding they need to come through this unscathed. But it's not realistic. So when the NHLRA asked us for $1 billion of the 1.25, and that was fairly early in our process, I remember that meeting ending and saying, we don't have enough money. And that just blew my mind, because a week and a half before that, I'm thinking $1.25 billion with a B, how are we possibly going to distribute that much money?
Thank you. I guess the obvious follow-up on that is, what is the real number if in a perfect world?
Frankly, I haven't taken the time to calculate or to add up all of the asks we received, but I think I could easily ballpark it someplace in the $5 to $8 billion range. And that's just an estimated, I mean, an educated guesstimate. That's all. Sure. I seriously have not taken the time to add them all up. We've had multiple requests for hundreds of millions of dollars.
Very good. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Thank you, Jerry.
You're welcome. Am I dismissed?
I believe so.
All right. Well, thank you all very much for what you do and for the opportunity to speak to you today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry.
Yeah. Take care.
All right, last item on our agenda is any commissioner insights, public comment period.
Linda Kuhnhart.
Sylvia, do you think we'll continue with Zoom in the next couple months?
Excuse me?
We heard Linda Kuhnhart was saying something.
I was just so taken aback by Jerry speaking about the amount of money and the devastation that this closure to our life is taking. I knew it was bad, but I was hoping I was mistaken how bad it is. So I really am concerned that we, as the public, aren't recognizing that this devastation economically is going to impact us for a long time. And I wish that we as a group could figure out how to suggest to the people who make the decisions, recognize that just because they're getting their check doesn't mean everybody else is getting their same income, and how we need to look at regulations and control measures that keep people from freely using their initiative to figure out new ways to earn income for their families. I don't know how to ask them to do that. To me, a lot of what keeps people that own small businesses from fixing or changing their small businesses is the regulatory system that we have, that sometimes seems to be used more as a weapon than as a productive tool. I didn't think that Jerry was the right person to ask, but I don't know who to ask.
Yeah, I think that's a valid question, but I mean, you look at the federal programs that were put out, there's a lot of, say, loopholes there for businesses to apply for funds. Some of them didn't probably need it, but they try to do something, I guess, with speed versus thoroughness. And that's what you get sometimes. But I think we're all kind of in uncharted territory here.
Exactly.
I have a question. And I wish I brought it up with Jerry, but I'll bring up to our two reps. We have this question on the huge amount of needs for the restaurants and hotel business. Wouldn't it be an easy way to determine this by going back and looking at the rooms and meals tax collections over the past year or two to sort of make a projection going forward and take out maybe the first 3 months of 2020? Just an idea I just came across to, and I was thinking about the big numbers that were thrown up there.
Sylvia, I can chime in. This is Representative John O'Connor from Barry. A lot of us are on conference calls either twice or 3 times a week. The ones that are on almost every day, both on the Senate and on the House side, is the Fiscal Committee, is the Ways and Means Committee, and along with the governor's own people working on it. I mean, he's put a lot of placeholders out there. There's hiring freezes at this point. We know we're going to be anywhere from 200 to 300 million short for this coming year. Matter of fact, at 2 o'clock, I will be on a conference call with the governor to update before the 3 o'clock meeting that he's going to have another press release coming online. So anybody who wants to do that can always go to WMUR and watch his press release on that. But believe me, there's a lot of conversation going on regarding where our money's going to come from, where it's going to be applied, that what we do already have. So, and there's a lot of concerns. That's why I brought up the Main Street. I'm also president of a nonprofit community center in Derry, and we just applied for that. It was a simple form to fill out, but there's no explanation as to how the scoring is going to go on that. And that's another question I got for the governor too. But Jerry responded very well. And I don't know if Representative Pierce wants to chime in and anything else that he has. Let's say I'm on 2 committees, and one of my committees is going to be slow. The House will be coming back into session on June 11th, keeping a social distance by going to the Whittemore Center. I think that has an 8,000 seat capacity, and they're supposed to be segregating everybody and buying tablets so that we can vote on many of the bills that have not been completed yet that were required by law to hear. Representative Pierce, do you want to jump in too? Put you on the spot?
Yes, you did, because I'm no longer a representative. But
the honorable
I appreciate the service that you're still doing.
Jeff, if I can, Bill Herman, just to get to Bill's original point, yeah, DRA can certainly calculate the loss on the rooms and meals tax, and they're going to have to, because it's going to affect the state budget, and it's going to affect monies that come back to municipalities. But that's not the entirety of the hospitality. It's not going to take in transportation and cabs and some of these Main Street businesses that are also part of the hospitality industry, if you will. Places like Canopy Lake Park and other spots. It's only going to deal with hotels and restaurants.
Yeah, DOT is going to take a huge hit just on tolls.
Yeah, I believe they are.
That's huge.
This is Dave Pierce. I do have one comment. Here in Goffstown, I'm a commissioner on the Sewer Commission. And later this week, we send out our every 6-month bill for the sewer department. In this round of billing, we're including a letter to the businesses and restaurants, offering them to immediately ask for an abatement, and just to say some comment about how their use of water has decreased over the last 3 months. If they indicate for asking for an abatement, that forestalls them paying the bill until we respond. And tentatively, we're prepared to give off 50% of the sewer bill if they say something about how they've been impacted.
I was curious.
Thank you.
I was curious if any of the communities are finding, I always try to find some kind of silver lining. If there's any savings that people are, or communities are seeing, whether that's in insurance. I mean, for the first time, I think we're getting checks from our insurance company that are giving us money, a little bit of money back since we're not driving so much. So I'm wondering if there are any other savings that communities are realizing.
Well, Sylvia,
I can say in Derry, because of what happened with the oil prices, that the cost of oil for the next fiscal year is considerably down compared to even last year. So it's well under $1.60 a gallon that we're paying. So that's one benefit that we gain because of what's happening on the world market on fuel.
and I was thinking along those lines too, Sylvia, as David was finishing up, the sewer issue, the wastewater from Goffstown goes to Manchester and is treated in Manchester, and Goffstown is charged by the gallon. So if they're discharging less gallons, then they're getting charged less. And I suppose there's energy cost savings in not having to pump so much and all of that goes with it. It's probably not a lot of money, but it's something.
And from the environmental side, in Derry, we're seeing our solar field breaking records for solar production because the sky is so much cleaner than it normally is. So getting a lot more energy from that side for free. But
I would just offer that on the municipal side, insurance is treated much differently. The majority of municipalities are in a risk pool, and it's not run the same as commercial insurance. There will not be the sort of rebates that you see from commercial insurance. The real savings I believe most communities will see are on the school district side, and you're seeing reports in the newspapers. Because they have been closed, there are a lot of expenses from busing to sports to travel, student travel, school lunches, that money is just not being spent and will be, it's not going to be returned in terms of a check. School districts generally do not retain fund balance the way municipalities do. It becomes a revenue source against the coming year, but it will still benefit the taxpayers in that sense.
Anything that the commission, our staff might do in helping out any of the communities, for example, we just, especially for the rural communities, we're working with state agencies on putting out a volunteer driver program survey to try to help and understand better how volunteer driver programs throughout the state are functioning at this point, what changes they're seeing in their services. So that just has gone out last week. Anything else we might be doing, whether that's just within our region or statewide, that might be of service to the communities? Or you just love what we're doing now and we will keep doing it?
Oh, I want everything to open. I want to be normal.
Yes, we all do. We just started our traffic counting program last week. So you may see our crew out and about. And that's interesting, you know, just trying to get that what you would normally be no big deal. We go out, we collect them, we set them up. And now it's a much bigger deal on everybody's wearing a mask and situating themselves strategically between our two people. And it's a much bigger deal.
the other thing I would say, Sylvia, I think I mentioned it last time, is around broadband. And if there's some of this money available to help reach rural areas that have poor coverage, because that facilitates a lot of things, telemedicine, and a lot of the social networking. And I think we're depending on a lot more now.
Yeah, I'd be curious if that, if Jerry's group is even, if they're considering, you know, it's a much bigger issue, broadband across the state. I know the regional planning directors have brought that up with different legislators over the past several months. And we're lucky, most of our communities, I'd say Francistown, parts of maybe New Boston, Ware, up in Deerfield. So depending on how rural you are, the coverage can be kind of sticky. So I'm curious if there's progress being made on that front. I don't know. Anyone know? Do you know, John, if that's part of your conversation with the governor or your different groups?
Not really.
Yeah. I mean, we rely so much on the internet with people who don't have the coverage. I can't imagine what it's like.
Yes, please. If you find, John, if you find the opportunity soon, Francistown could use some increased broadband funding. Mr. Eisenberg's been working on that for Francistown, doing a great job, but it's really hard to get the amount of money needed to get it changed. One of my planning board members cannot participate by Zoom without the phone call issue. He can't work from home because he doesn't have the broadband capacity.
Sylvia, this is James Veo. I just want to note that one place where there is some money available for broadband requests is the Economic Development Administration through their Public Works and Economic Adjustment Assistance grant. They have $1.5 billion to give out in the form of grants as small as 100,000, as high as 30 million, and they're anticipating giving out 3,000 grants during this fiscal year. So if people have broadband projects, the EDA's economic assistance grant is a good place to look.
Can I add to that also? The USDA, I believe there was some money appropriated for rural communities, which, towns that are much smaller. Derry would never qualify for that, but up in the North Country, they could qualify. So I believe there's still some money under the brand new farm bill that came out last year.
Well, I know the executive directors have been talking about just doing a statewide assessment on whose coverage, what type of coverage is available, that kind of thing, so that then we can create a strategic plan around it. So I think first, just knowing what's out there is so important. I'm going to change the subject completely, if I might, and our SNHPC Executive Committee started talking about our annual meeting in September, and one of the ideas was to create a virtual annual meeting. And I just thought I'd see if anyone, some thoughts on, I don't know if people would even be willing to meet physically, that's appropriate, or if it's just as well, you can all have a drink from your own home bar, and we can certainly have a great speaker virtually. Any thoughts on that?
I just thought I'm one of the ones that talked about that. I just think it's a nice connection amongst us. If we can get it going, but too many people is a challenge. So how many people are involved makes it very, very challenging. But it felt like we shouldn't just skip it. That's why I suggested a speaker that we could all enjoy. I mean, I've done some webinars since this has started, and I've really enjoyed them.
It's really the only time of year we do any recognition, especially for the staff. So I think it's important to keep something in place.
I would say where so much is unknown at this point, to err on the side of caution this year and maybe do something virtual, that makes more sense. And then, hopefully in the upcoming months, we'll have a sense of where things are going to fall into place. And then if you want to host something as far as a late gathering, maybe later in the year, then, we could always discuss that at that point.
Yeah, like our Christmas meeting, our December meeting. All right, gives me some ideas. I already have a couple people lined up, so it's all good, but I just wanted to see if there was support for a virtual meeting. Sounds like there's some support for that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Anything else, Sylvia?
Anything else, Linda? We say nope, and thank you so much.
Motion
Thank
to
you.
adjourn.
So we just need a motion to adjourn, yeah.
Bill Herman moved to adjourn.
Peter, second.
All right, I think we just can go for group I.
Aye.
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 Thanks, everyone. Great to see you.
Aye and bye.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.